Welcome, everyone. This is the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Here we chat about all things boating with marine industry professionals and enthusiasts who spend all the time they can out on the water.
Hi, this is Tanya Becker, and I'm your host for today's episode of PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating. I'm joined by my guests, David Rose, Director of Sales at Bennett Marine, Connor Bluhm, an Account Manager at Bennett Marine, and Charlie Haimes, a partner with the Haimes Coleman Group. Based in Deerfield Beach, Florida, Bennett Marine is a leader in trim tab innovation. The Haimes Coleman Group is a sales organization made up of highly experienced and knowledgeable marine industry professionals. They represent 20 of the leading brands in the industry, including Bennett Marine, and have a fascinating bird's eye view of the market. Today we're going to talk about all things trim tabs, how they work, the differences among the systems on the market, and how to make the best decision for boaters looking to upgrade their boat or buying a new boat. Thanks so much for being here today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Glad to be here.
Well, let's kick this off pretty basic. Can you explain some of the fundamentals of trim tabs, how they work, and their primary benefits?
This is like one of my favorite questions. Friends, family, they're always like, what are trim tabs? You sell trim tabs? And I'm like, all right, envision this. And I walk them through it. There's two stainless steel pieces on the back of a transom, usually outboard towards the chine flat. And they're like, all right, you already lost me. What's going on? I'm like, if you think about trim tabs, they're an external accessory that help you run your boat at the best possible attitude. You're seeing basically the ability to adjust pitch, roll, correct listing. Really, a lot of people just think about bow down. How are these two little stainless steel pieces helping my bow to get down? You're looking at, a manual rocker control that's at your helm that's capable of adjusting how your boat runs from bow to stern, port to starboard. So I look at it as an X pivot. If you were at the helm and you wanted the starboard bow down, you would actually be putting the port tab down. And it's basically working on that axis. Same thing, if you wanted the whole bow down, you'd be plowing those tabs, deflecting them fully. And if you wanted your bow to come back up, you'd be retracting them. So trim tabs in general can correct your boat in a bow to stern motion or in a port to starboard listing motion. And that helps with weight distribution. That helps with basically correcting your load. We hate to say it, but some OEMs have some built-in listing to their boat. So it helps from the get-go. And that's why they are standard equipment on many manufacturers' vessels.
That was a great explanation. Do you have anything to add to that, Connor?
No, I mean, he did a pretty good job. I know the biggest, I think, on the aftermarket side, which I deal with mostly, the biggest benefit we hear from customers is the listing. They might not be the most experienced boater or new to boating, and I don't think they completely understand what weight distribution can do. So first time they go out on the boat with all their friends, they're all excited, and all of a sudden they're tipping way to the port when one of their buddies wants to run over there and see something. So on my end, that's definitely the most common reason I see customers get trim tabs is they want a smoother ride. And again, if they're not the most experienced boater, it's one of the easiest accessories to add and improve the performance of the boat.
And they're right. I mean, you're looking at fine-tuning the ride attitude, and in a following sea, you want to get the nose up a little bit, the bow up a little bit. But in a head sea, you want to keep the bow down so it's going to slice through the waves. But it's really you're fine-tuning the attitude of a boat, and there's so many different boat designs and boat bottom styles that, a good set of trim tabs like Bennett will really make that boat even that much better going forward.
That makes total sense. And I actually found a really valuable little overview explainer video on your website. So I'm going to link to that in the show notes. It just was like 2 minutes, I think, and really provided a really helpful visual to let people see how these things work in a pretty simplistic way.
We show that video to almost everybody that comes through for a plant tour because they're like, what are you guys doing here? Same thing. It's like, imagine this. Watch this video.
2 minutes of your life and you know what we're talking about.
Yep.
So from my understanding, I mean, one of the biggest differences in trim tab systems is how the system controlling the trim tabs work. What are some of the key differences among systems out in the market?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different types of trim tabs. The two I would say most common are hydraulic and electric, where your hydraulic systems are being run by a hydraulic power unit or a pump, and your electric systems are run by electric actuators that literally have electric motors inside of them. There's no power unit inside the boat itself. But then on the fringes, you even have, for some smaller vessels, you have spring-loaded tabs. And then on the larger, you have what Bennett offers is Premier Line or heavy-duty hydraulic tabs. And really what it all comes down to is the type of boat and which set is going to best perform for that boat. Obviously, the heavier and the larger the boat is, the hydraulic system is going to take that punishment from the extra weight and the extra work that the boat is doing. But then on the smaller side, we at Bennett have kind of a rule of up to about 30 to 36 feet. Anything under that, you would really benefit from an electric system for ease of install. The tabs do deploy a little bit quicker and retract. And then even smaller than that, the spring-loaded I mentioned there is no wiring or tubing or control inside the transom. It is just going to be two spring-loaded actuators on the back of the vessel. So once you're underway, they are not manually controllable, but what they do is they really correct porpoising and getting the bow down on your hole shot. They're not necessarily designed to help with listing at all because they are not controllable once underway, but for the porpoising and hole shot, they're really going to improve the boat and are a really good affordable option.
David, do you have anything that you wanted to add or?
No, and some of that just stands for whether it's ours or our competitors' product offerings. There are other people in the space offering electric trim tabs, offering hydraulic. Some people, instead of spring-loaded, they use gas pistons. And then, there's several different custom variations of what dual-acting high-performance hydraulic trim tabs work. Charlie used to run race boats for years, and he's seen all sorts of variations of those. And that's a pretty generic statement. We're just really fortunate here at Bennett that we can sell across all tiers. We used to joke it's like a 10 to 100 feet, but really it's 10 to 130 feet that we can cover pretty much every application.
Yeah, I mean, you have a unique perspective, Charlie. I mean, just both your job in the market, your current profession, as well as you formerly racing these boats. I mean, what are some of your thoughts?
No, with Bennett, we're the only really manufacturer that offers, spring-loaded, electric, and hydraulic. So we can take care of anybody's needs. As David said and Connor said, from 10 to 130 feet, from a John boat to a go fast performance boat. We got it fully covered, and again, I've been doing it for over 50 years. So, trim tabs, it's just about every boat out there needs a set of trim tabs to fine tune that, like I talked about earlier, that fine tuning that ride attitude and what you want. And some boaters want the boat to do one thing, others want to do something different, and you can fine tune those needs with a set of Bennett trim tabs.
Yeah, and they're super helpful. Well, and as you all have said, in pretty much every application. But towing skiers or towing kids on towables, that kind of thing. They're at least from my personal experience, they're really helpful for that.
Sure, and even on like the high performance boats where I came from, that world I came from, at real high speeds, some of these boats are now production boats, 80, 90 mile an hour, and the set of trim tabs, it kind of lets that boat. I always talk about it like a long set of trim tabs, a set of wheelie bars. So when the boat gets a little out of shape, because you set a little bit of tab, it allows that boat to settle back down, right? And it's almost maybe not a safety thing, but it just tweaks it, and it keeps that boat nice and settled the faster you go. So again, it's a great useful tool for any boater.
Total sense. I think the majority of Bennett Marine trim tabs are sold to boat builders at an OEM level, but you also have trim tabs available for aftermarket purchase, right? I mean, what are some of the opportunities for boaters to use Bennett Marine Solutions to upgrade their boats?
So the word upgrade comes to mind, and you said it perfectly, because yes, pretty much all these OEMs have spec sets that they love, they've used. Some have transitioned over the years, some have gone to different brands. So we have conversion kits in the aftermarket that are tremendous, like high volume selling out the door, because you have the ability to take an old Bennett hydraulic system. Let's say your pump no longer works. Yes, we offer a replacement, but you want to try electric. You heard response times faster. You heard it's easier to retrofit it yourself that way, and you don't have to change too many components. Sure, why not convert to a Bolt electric trim tab system? At the same time, let's say maybe your boat's a little bit older and your system works completely fine, but you want to upgrade the control. You got a basic rocker, or, Bennett's 1996 best trim tab control might have had 2 separate little indicators on it. And you're like, I would really like that new, touch panel that has all up and all down buttons. Maybe I'd like a joystick. Maybe I'd like, something with auto tab control built into it. Let me call Bennett and see what they have. And sure enough, even if it's a classic hydraulic system or somebody else's system, more than likely we have a control upgrade available to you. So it's like, sure, you want to convert your system from hydraulic to electric. You want to convert another system from electric to hydraulic, or you want to upgrade your control, we have you covered. And that's where the aftermarket plays such an important role for us, because our distributors do our marketing in many cases. And Charlie, Connor and I, we know the product inside and out, but our distributor partners have helped us tremendously in making sure that they're stocking the right materials and they have these unique SKUs, because typically you want to sell a brand new set every time, right? But if their tabs are in great shape, their actuators work, their pump works, it's like, okay, well, how about a new control, And that's when it becomes a little more important for the aftermarket, because we have all these parts available a la carte as well. You're not forced into buying just a specific set with a specific control. We give you that versatility, and our distributors are doing a really good job of stocking a variety of our parts, which it seems like a lot, but there's hundreds of SKUs out there just for Bennett trim tabs.
You have anything to add, Connor?
Yeah, and I think the one other big segment that is kind of natural sales is the replacement part business. Bennett is known for one of the best warranties, definitely in the trim tab space, if not the whole marine space, but it's a marine environment. Eventually something's going to get wet or fail, or like he said, there might be marine growth and just damage over time. So there is a big market for replacement parts as well as the upgrade kits and conversion kits that David already mentioned.
So how hard are these your kits or components to install? I mean, it sounds relatively easy.
It truly depends on your mechanical aptitude. I won't say that everyone in our facility could install trim tabs, but most people can. And originally, years ago in our training, they would have everybody install a set just to see what it was like. And an SLT set, I really truly feel like anybody should be able to do that in about an hour. You're talking about 7 screws per side. It's 4 on the tab hinge plate, backing plate, and then 3 on the upper hinge. It's that simple. You get into an electric trim tab system. Okay, you're running some harnesses now. Maybe not everybody's comfortable, with power leads and whatnot. But again, this is 2 actuators hooked up to 2 harnesses moving forward to your hum control. The schematics of these systems look so simple. Hydraulics, okay, now you got a little tubing involved. Now you got automatic transmission fluid involved. Now you're, taking the Lexan cover off of hydraulic power unit. There's funnels involved. You're having a little bit of a difficult time. You're making sure your tubing lengths are the exact same, so your tabs deploy at the same speed. And then you get into Premier line, and I'm like, okay, master techs only. Here we go. I personally, when I see what those guys are capable of doing at the Premier level, you're dealing with Hydrosports and Princess and Intrepid and Scout, and you're dealing with these guys that just have some of the best technicians in the space, installing them at the OEM level. And then on the retrofit side, their dealer networks are amazing. So yeah, it's pretty easy until you get to the really big stuff.
Charlie, that's super helpful, David. I did want to circle back to you, Charlie, just in terms of your thoughts on the aftermarket upgrade, kind of scene. What are you hearing from distributors out there commenting on, Bennett Marine's solution as upgrade opportunities?
Well, yeah, I mean, we get a lot of upgrade business with Bennett because of our reputation, our long-term, we've been in business for over 50 years. But then the upgrades, we've got so many nice upgrades, and I'll elaborate on what Connor and David talked about on controls. What I see at the OEMs in a lot of areas, and when I first started selling, was a lot of the boat builders weren't even doing controls with indicators. Now, because of my background, I want to know where every part of the boat, is the settings are at, whether it's the trim on the motor or the drive or the outboard, but also in the trim tabs. And to not have that reference, to me, is is not, it doesn't make the trim tab as useful. It's just me talking here. So having those indicators, knowing where that tab is located, if it's down, and we have a little digital light, so it could be 2 or 3 lights lit up, and it's going to show how far down the trim tab is, and maybe if the boat's listing left or right or port or starboard, you can adjust it, but you always see where that trim tab action is. And if you're running in a quartering sea going out somewhere, when you turn around and come back, if you don't adjust your trim tabs, that boat's going to really list. So seeing where your trim tabs are with those indicators, to me, is a huge tool, especially for a beginner boater or an experienced boater like myself. I use my indicators all the time on my Bennett trim tabs, and it makes a huge difference to the feel. And then you look at that setting when you're using the boat, and you remember, hey, it was 2 to 3 foot chop out there. I ran it down level 4 LEDs. And you remember that. So next time out, you go, let me set it to here. Oh, look how comfortable that rider was versus putting it down and guessing. So to me, it's a simple tool that we have within our systems that I think a lot of boat builders aren't taking advantage of installing as an OEM part. So I don't know, guys, if you or agree with me or not.
Because you talked on the indicator control, the other feature about that control that pays for itself in like the quickest way possible is auto tab retraction. If Charlie is the most experienced race boat guy of all time, but he forgets one time to retract his trim tabs before that boat's put on a trailer or put on a lift, that's an actuator or a tab. Nothing Bennett did wrong. He simply didn't retract them. You get an indicator control. It has a built-in auto tab retraction feature. You shut that ignition off, you remove power, it retracts the tabs for you. With the $150 cost difference right there, you've literally saved yourself $200-$300 in what you would have needed to, spend in the replacement side. So it's little added features that just make the whole process easier. Just like when you go up another level to Auto Trim Pro, you really get dialed into how you like running the boat. You save that as a favorite, and that makes the whole experience the next time easier for you.
It is amazing how much all this marine technology is mimicking automobile technology,
Some people joke we're 20 years behind, but we like to think only about 10,
10 seems about right now. I mean, I think not so long ago, 20 was probably pretty accurate, but it's you're closing the industry's closing the gap, adopting technologies faster.
Very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So, when boaters are looking to upgrade, in an aftermarket kind of capacity, how do they best select the system that's right for them? What does that decision-making process look like?
There's a couple questions. We try to lay it out as best we can on our website just to give some, hard information. We've done some videos on this. We've created some, recommendation application sheets, but really the best way, I don't want to put this on our guys and client services, is really to walk through what you have, what you're trying to accomplish, really knowing the purpose of the boat. There's tons of 36-foot boats with twin engines. But how do you run the boat? What's the wide open throttle speed versus how you run your boat? How much available space is there for us to work with? God forbid I recommend something that won't fit in that pocket because you didn't tell me you had a pocket. You didn't tell me that you had a swim platform and you use that ladder every weekend with your kids out snorkeling or playing water sports. And here I am like, yeah, I have all this free space to install any trim tabs that I want for this boat. We also get into it where what you have might be what you're forced to have. If the boat builder has created a pocket there and that is the only available mounting space, I would love to fit different tabs there, or you might want something different. But the builders run that boat. That builder had architects involved, had engineers involved. They spec'd a specific tab to that boat. Stick with what they've recommended. Stick with what they've installed. So really looking for a solidified answer, I would just tell you, there used to be a program called Contact Bennett First. And that's what I always saw as the best way. Because we would tell you, it looks like you have a pretty unique custom set from one of our competitors. The time, money, and effort that you're going to need to put into this might not be worth it to you. Or we'd say, oh, that's a Bennett set. You can add 12 by 12 drop fins. We have those right out of the box. You're in business. Oh, or you're not getting the deflection you want out of it fast enough. You can add another pump to the system. You can add another actuator. So showing us what you have and how you use it, I think is probably the most important first step.
And as an elaborate what David just said, we keep drawings going back for years and years from any OEM that's done a custom set of trim tabs by Bennett. We have that available. So in the aftermarket, going back to that, the replacement plates themselves, we have that information. So, which, some of our competitors aren't in business anymore. So because we're so long standing in business, we have that information and it can replace that set of plates fairly quickly for the consumer or dealer.
So I did want to circle back to, folks out there looking to buy a new boat, which granted are hard to come by these days, but people are, we're still buying new boats. What trim tab related questions should the buyer ask their boat dealer as they're deciding which boat to buy?
Well, obviously they should ask brand. That's important.
Ask for Bennett Marine specifically.
Yeah, from brand, usually size, and if you can see what's available, end user doesn't need to necessarily know if he has one or two actuators, but if he has something that looks unique, he might want to ask why. And then if he's paying a certain premium, he might want to check out what's on the helm. He wants to see what kind of keypad he has. He wants to see if he has those indication lights or if he's, going into just a basic rocker switch. He may want to, he may be super techie and want to know if it's NEMA compatible. Like there's some simple questions out there right now. He's going to keep his boat in the water. Can the dealer add zincs to it, or are there zincs already included because they've been spec'd by the OEM? So if he's going to ask a couple questions like, hey, it could be as simple as, what did the trim tabs look like that I'm putting on this boat? Or what trim, why did you pick that set? And typically these guys have a great answer on why they spec'd them. They can show you competitive analysis. They do some great studies about, there's some manufacturers that build similar sized boats on similar platforms with similar sized horsepower. And guess what? The tabs we're providing to them are either nearly identical or have a slight modification, and they can tell you why they made that modification to the tab. So.
Yeah, and I think to circle back on something Charlie mentioned a few minutes ago, I would ask too what kind of keypad or control you have at the helm. Especially for newer boaters, the indicated controls are such a great learning tool, like he mentioned on how to use trim tabs. You would think it's almost counterintuitive where you think if you're new to boating, I don't need the extra expensive or fancy bells and whistles. I'll just do the basic rocker. But again, you might not really realize what the trim tabs are doing and how it's affecting your boat. Whereas if you had those indicated controls, even if it's something as simple as, hey, when that control has a lot of lights on it, my boat's riding a whole lot better. And then you dig into it deeper and really learn as to why that is. So other than just the size and the type of control, especially for newer boaters, I think is a great learning tool on how to get the most out of your trim tabs.
You have any thoughts on this front, Charlie? Or
No, I agree.
Charlie buys a new boat every year, so he's got tons of input.
I got a 4-year-old boat with 60 hours on it. I don't use it much, so I need to spend more time on the boat. But no, I agree with both of them. The indicators is huge, and again, it's there to fine tune and agree with Connor. The entry level boater is the one that needs those indicators. So agreed. And you, first off, even when you're buying a new boat, let's make sure there's trim tabs on the boat, I think, because you want that adjustability there. Yeah. So. Yeah,
they're dealer options in some cases. Yeah. You might find that your buddy bought a XYZ and his came with tabs, but you bought an XYZ and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. Well, before I let you guys go, I wanted to ask you a non-Bennett Marine related question. Where are your favorite places to boat? David, do you want to kick this off?
I could steal a couple people's answers. So I feel like I know where Charlie's favorite and Connor's favorite are, but mine's a little unique. I grew up actually fishing. I'm from Fort Lauderdale, from the East Coast, and I grew up fishing with my dad here, but we would always make trips over to the West Coast. So Marco Island, Goodland Pass, Naples. If you do any backcountry fishing over there, it's quiet. It's almost like lake life, and you just have a different perspective. Now I find myself going to Sanibel Captiva area more, but I actually like the West Coast when it comes to boating or fishing, probably because you need a smaller boat and you can catch more fish easier. But that's my answer. So West Coast for fishing purposes.
Go ahead and steal Charlie's answer, Connor.
Oh, I won't do that. Mine's easy. When I'm on a boat, I don't want to have to work or sweat or try to get a fish. I just want to sit there, let somebody else drive and have a good time. So mine is going to be the Isla Mirada Sandbar all day, every day. Just I want to relax when I'm on a boat. I don't want to be put to work. So either there or up and down the intercoastal, just having a relaxing time, not as much work as David likes to do.
How about you, Charlie?
Well, my thunder is always down in Key West. You know, I did a lot of boat racing down in Key West. Had a lot of luck down there. So I love boating down there. It's just a great place to go boating, fishing, diving. And then when you're outside of the boat and you're on land, there's a lot of stuff, fun stuff to do down there too. So Key West is my place. So love it down there.
3 Florida guys. It was all Florida.
There are other places in the country, guys. Now,
you guys have boats?
Where?
Well, thanks so much for being here today. PartsVu is proud to carry Bennett Marine trim tabs and supporting components, so I encourage our listeners to go to PartsVu.com and check out our offerings. And I've included a link in the show notes, as well as a link to the Bennett Marine website. And as I mentioned earlier, I included the link to the really informative little explainer video that it demonstrates how trim tab works. And finally, Bennett Marine has a lot of great videos on their YouTube channel, and a link to that is included in the show notes as well. So thanks again for being here today, guys.
Well, thanks for inviting us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
See you next week.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Are you in a dock war with your boating neighbor for the cleanest boat? Check out our marine soaps, polishes, waxes, and more at PartsVu.com. And for free shipping, use the coupon code PVTalksShine, a special perk for our podcast listeners. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for boating knowledge, to keep in touch with the PartsVu community, and for special sales and promotions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and check out the show notes for the coupon code just mentioned, more information about PartsVu and the products we offer, as well as our boating blog, the PartsVu Exchange. And a big thanks to Mind for performing the original music featured within this podcast.